Hey everyone, this is Sami with Growfund here. In this video, we're going to walk through all the settings available inside donation mode of Growfund. The goal here isn't just to click through every toggle, but to understand what actually matters, what you should configure first, and which settings you can safely come back to later. So think of this as a practical walkthrough of Growfund's settings panel with a focus on what directly affects how donations work, how donors experience your platform, and how you manage things behind the scene. So let's start at the very top with the general settings. This is where you define the foundation of your platform. At the top, you'll set your base country. So this determines where your donation operations are considered to be based, and it affects things like formatting, compliance, and how information is displayed across the platform. So you'd want to set this to where your base of operations is basically. So let's go ahead and set that. Below that, you'll see your organization information. This is important because these details are used throughout the system, especially in emails, receipts, and communications sent to donors. But at the same time, if you don't have an organization and you're just a solo, next are the page options. Here you can assign pages for your donor registration, login, privacy policy, and terms and conditions. If you're running a public donation platform, these are not optional. They're critical for trust, transparency, and compliance again. So you'll need to set the default pages for your donor registration page, your login page, privacy policy page, and terms and conditions page. So these are the pages that you can edit, and then you'll come to the donation form options. This controls which fields appear on donation forms, like company name and name title prefixes and salutations. The key thing to think about here is friction. Only require what you actually need, especially if your goal is to maximize completed donations. You can set company field to optional. We would recommend setting most of these to optional, as like we said, it would increase friction for your donors. Finally, there's the checkout consent text. This is where you define the legal or informational text donors would agree to during checkout. After you're done with that, hit save before we move on to the campaign tab. These settings control how donation campaigns behave globally. You'll see options for things like whether users must be logged in to view campaign details and whether donor lists are publicly visible. These are more about transparency and privacy. For some organizations, public donor lists help build trust. For others, privacy is more important. Growfund lets you decide that at a global level. So if you want to go for a more accessible donation site where users would not need to be logged in to view campaign details, then you can toggle this on. By default, by the way, all of these are off. You'll also see campaign updates visibility. This determines who can see updates posted by fundraisers or the admin. You can make updates visible to everyone, donors, or only logged in users. There's also social sharing options, which allow you to control which platforms campaigns can be shared on. This affects discoverability and reach, especially for donation campaigns that rely on community sharing. Scrolling down, you'll see comment settings. Here you can either enable or disable comments on campaigns. Control moderation, and decide who can see comments. If engagement matters to you, comments can be really powerful. And if moderation is a concern, then you can also lock this down. You'll also see options like tribute and funds at the bottom of the campaign settings. Now, we go over these two settings in our how to build a donation campaign video. So if you're confused about what these exactly do, be sure to check that out. But basically, if you want to enable tributes and specifically funds for your donation site, then toggling this on will let you have them ready for your donation campaigns. Tribute allows donors to donate in honor or memory of someone, which is extremely important for many donation-based use cases. You can enable this globally, and then we can even customize the Tribute eCard PDF. So before we move on, we hit save again. And next up is user and permissions. This tab controls what different user roles are allowed to do across your platforms. So for fundraisers, you can decide whether they're allowed to publish campaigns directly or if campaigns require admin approval. This is important if you're running a multi-fundraiser platform. You can also control whether fundraisers are allowed to delete campaigns permanently. We would recommend having this off unless you trust and you know your fundraiser very well. For donors, you'll see options like anonymous donations and donor comments. These settings directly affect donor comfort and trust, so they're worth thinking through carefully. The key idea here is control. Growfund gives you flexibility, but you decide how open or restricted your platform should be. We would recommend keeping anonymous donations on, hitting save, and then next is payment. And this is one of the most important tabs in the entire settings panel. At the top, you'll choose your monetization engine. By default, this is Growfund's native system, but you can also integrate WooCommerce if you want to access that. And below that are payment methods. This is where you enable gateways like PayPal, Stripe, and any manual payment options such as bank transfers or any MFS transfers if you want. For donation campaigns, offering at least one trusted online payment method is essential. Then you'll see currency and formatting options. This controls how amounts are displayed across campaigns, checkouts, receipts, and reports. Make sure this matches your audience's expectations. Small inconsistencies here can cause mistrust and confusion amongst donors. And lastly, there's also guest checkout. This is a very helpful feature. Enabling this will allow donors to give without creating an account, which is almost always recommended for donation-based platforms because this reduces the barrier to donation drastically. So we'll go ahead and hit save and go to PDF receipt. Growfund automatically generates PDF receipts for donations, and this tab allows you to customize how those receipts look. So you can edit the default template to include your logo, brand colors, custom messages, and footer information. There's also an option for annual receipts, which allows donors to download a summary of their donations over a year. This is especially helpful for tax-related use cases. Receipts are a trust signal. Spending a bit of time here, editing and making sure your receipts look robust is very, very important because in a lot of countries, you can get tax rebates off of donations. So users who are donating on your site will rely on these receipts to ensure that they get those tax rebates. If your receipts are lackluster, then once users find that out, they're not going to be very happy about it. So make sure you do this properly. Now let's talk about emails and notifications because this is one of Growfund's strongest areas. Growfund uses an event-driven email system, meaning emails are automatically sent when specific actions happen. Things like new donations, campaign updates, campaign approvals, password resets, and so much more. You'll see emails grouped by roles. So we'll have admin emails, we have fundraiser emails, and lastly, we have donor emails. And if you want, you can also edit individual email templates. But here's the important part. You don't need to customize every single email individually unless you really want to do that. Growfund lets you edit the default template and any changes that you make there, like logo colors, typography, and footer content, all of these will apply globally across all system emails. That means that you can establish your branding once and everything stays consistent. If you want to go deeper, then obviously you can edit individual templates. This is useful when certain emails need specific wording like donation receipts or campaign updates. You'll also notice that users can manage notification preference, which gives donors and fundraisers control over what they receive without missing critical system emails. So you can toggle any of these on and off depending on your fundraisers and your donor necessities for your site. Then we have security. The security section is intentionally simple. Right now, the main option here is email verification. Enabling this will require users to verify their email address before they can activate their account. If you're running a public donation platform, this would add an extra layer of protection and helps reduce spam or fake accounts somewhat. And then we move on to branding. So this is where you visually align Growfund with your organization. You can upload your logo, make all the necessary edits to it. Lastly, we have advanced settings. Here, you'll see the campaign permalink structure, which controls how campaign URLs are formed. Unless you have a specific reason to change this, you can usually leave it as it is. You can also see data management options, including whether data should be erased when the plugin is uninstalled. This is more relevant for development or testing environments than an actual live donation platform. And finally, we have the license tab. This simply confirms your license. You can see what your license key is for any information, and you'll see when the expiration date is as well. If something ever feels locked or unavailable, this is the first place to check. So that's a complete walkthrough of the Growfund donation modes settings panel. Some sections like payments, emails, and general setup are critical to get right early on. Others like branding or advanced settings can be refined over time. The key takeaway here is that Growfund gives you global control. Once these settings are configured properly, creating and managing donation campaigns become much smoother and more predictable. If this helped clarify how Growfund settings work, let me know what you'd like to dive into next, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you, everyone.